All right, let's get right into it. If you're a facilities professional, you know this feeling all too well. You're staring down a huge decision, a massive capital project, maybe a new sustainability goal, and the stakes are just incredibly high. The path forward? It's almost never obvious, which is why having a rock-solid process for how you decide is absolutely crucial.
We have all been here, right? Staring at a problem that looks like this, with tangled arrows pulling you in a dozen different directions. How in the world do you balance the budget against what your users actually need, or weigh a quick, short-term fix against a much better long-term goal? When you have so many variables and trade-offs, just picking one path can feel like a total shot in the dark.
You know, there's actually a name for this kind of challenge. It's called an ill-defined problem. This is where the goal itself might be kind of fuzzy, or you just don't have all the info you need, or maybe the rules of the game keep changing on you. So the key takeaway here is these aren't problems you can solve with a simple checklist. They demand something way more robust.
Now, when we're faced with these messy problems, it's so tempting to just, go with your gut. But as we're about to see, for these kinds of high-stakes facilities decisions, relying on intuition is basically a recipe for disaster.
Just take a look at the difference here. On one side, you've got a water line leak. That's a well-structured problem. You have procedures, you know exactly what to do. But on the other side, replacing a boiler? Whoa, that's ill-structured. You're juggling first costs, climate goals, future utility rates, a dozen different things. The two require completely different ways of thinking.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. When we rush or just trust our gut on these big, messy problems, we end up with partially baked solutions. And those are the kinds of decisions that lead to budget overruns and bad outcomes that can haunt an institution with extra costs and headaches for decades.
So if our gut feelings can lead us astray, what's the alternative? Well, lucky for us, there's a structured framework out there with a really fascinating, battle-tested history that's been adapted specifically for facilities management.
And get this process didn't just pop up overnight. As you can see here, its roots go all the way back to the 19th century Prussian Army. Then the U.S. Army adopted it in 1910, and by 1960 it was known as the Military Decision-Making Process, or MDMP. So we're talking about a framework that has over a century of refinement in some of the most high-stakes, uncertain environments imaginable.
And that brings us to today. This is where Erik Backus comes in. He saw the clear parallels between military planning and facilities challenges, and he brilliantly adapted this super robust military framework into a practical tool for our field, the Facility Decision-Making Process, or FDMP.
So, what does this process actually look like? Let's pop the hood and walk through the 7 steps that can give you a clear path from a really complex problem to a confident, solid decision.
And here it is, the full FDMP framework. Now, at first glance, it's a logical flow from top to bottom. But look at those arrows on the left. That's key. This is an iterative process. It's built to be repeatable and scalable, so you can use it for a small project or a gigantic one. Each step is designed to build on the one before it. These first 3 steps are all about one thing: definition. Step 1 isn't just get a work order, it's about deeply understanding what's really being asked. Step 2, problem analysis, is maybe the most important step of all. This is where you dig past the symptoms to find the actual root problem. And then in step 3, you create your decision criteria. This is basically the measuring stick you'll use to judge every single potential solution.
Okay, once your foundation is set, you move from defining to solving. In step 4, you brainstorm a whole range of options. And you want to think wide here. Step 5 is where the hardcore, data-driven work happens, as you analyze and compare those options against the criteria you just built. Finally, you present your recommendation, get your approvals, and in step 7, you lock it all down in a concrete action plan to make sure it gets done right.
All right, so that's the theory. But does this actually work in the real world? Let's check out a fantastic case study from Joint Base Meier-Henderson Hall to see the FDMP in action.
So here's the deal. The problem was figuring out the best place to build a new multi-million-dollar lodging facility. The challenge? The original no-brainer site suddenly became unavailable, which forced a complete, high-stakes reevaluation. And the installation's engineering chief, Erik Backus himself, used the FDMP to tackle this classic, ill-defined problem.
This slide right here really shows the process at work. This is step 5, analyze and compare options brought to life. Now, don't worry, we're not going to go through every single number here. But what's so important is what this table represents. It's proof of a deliberate, data-driven process.
They compared every viable option against key criteria like cost, master plan compliance, and parking. No gut feelings allowed, just rigorous analysis.
And the result? It was something nobody saw coming. After running everything through the process, the analysis revealed that the best solution wasn't to build at Joint Base Meyer at all. The truly optimal decision, the one that best aligned all the assets with what the Army actually needed, was to build a facility at a completely different base, Fort Meade.
I mean, this just perfectly shows the power of the framework. A purely intuitive process probably would have forced a bad, suboptimal solution at the original base. But the FDMP prevented a really costly mistake and led to a far, far better outcome. It was the ultimate validation of the process.
And that really brings us to the final, crucial question, and this one is for you to think about. Consider the complex, ill-defined problems you face. Is your current approach built on a robust, repeatable framework like the FDMP? Or is it maybe leaving you a little vulnerable to those partially baked solutions? It's definitely something worth deciding.